Uh, we're going to start by putting you in a breakout room for a quick conversation. And I mean quick, like 5 minutes, to check in with just a couple of other people to take on the question of sharing your name, a little about your discipline, and where you personally are about teaching artistry right now. So it's really fast, just 5 minutes, little chat at the water cooler before we start to share just a little bit with a couple of colleagues about where you are at regarding teaching artistry right now. Norma, can we send people out for 5 quick minutes?
Join. Yeah, Eric, shall we move straight on to our polls, do you think?
I can't see. Are people out in breakout rooms?
No, we are
All right.
waiting. I think there might be some technical difficulty here.
All right. Let's skip the polls. I mean, let's skip the
They're
breakout and
they're
go
they're
right to the
going
polls.
there's those that are going out. I think it's because it's such a large group. It's taking a few seconds.
Oh.
Yeah, I keep on admitting people and keep on. So it's a good first session thing to have here to navigate.
Yeah, guys, my apologies. For some reason, it's not letting me. I have to assign them manually, so we're doing that.
Oh, gotcha.
Just 16 more people to go. You're being assigned at this moment. Thank you for your patience, guys.
Good job, Norma.
I'll be staying in the main room, Norma.
All right.
The final few.
How are we
It's the
doing?
final countdown.
Last few.
Okay, I'm going to that's it. We should have everyone assigned but us, I believe. There are a couple of rooms with 4.
Okay, that's not a problem.
How dare you, Norma?
I know. So
Got a couple
becoming.
more. Yeah, we've got a couple more to go in.
Okay.
I think Linda and Deborah are waiting to go in.
Let me see. I don't see anyone on
Oh, there you
assign
go.
in here though.
One light.
Okay.
And there's just Linda.
Okay, let me kickstart there.
Yeah, we're going to be a little bit, quite a bit behind, just
Yeah.
letting you know.
Okay. Shall we do roughly 4 minutes then?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we've lost quite a bit of time already.
Yeah, I'd give them 3 more minutes and call them back.
Okay. Perfect.
Maybe they can share in a chat thread as well. This is good because this is a whole learning experience for us for our next session in 2 weeks to see how we navigate this.
We're very strict, Rocky, as you will discover.
Well, I know I remember it being before, like you can just hit it, like how many people, and it just populates
Yeah.
it for you.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that
that's
wasn't,
what
yeah.
I had. We're still waiting for the breakout rooms. Oh no,
So
this was
Norma,
4 minutes ago.
yeah.
So good.
Norma, we have the polls before
The
this.
polls come next, so you may want to take down your share.
There we
Thanks.
go. Okay, I do have Linda. I see Linda in the main room. Linda, are you still in the main room? I see her assigned. Maybe a little delayed because I don't have any unassigned participants, so that's good.
Hmm.
By my watch, they'd get a 1 minute warning now, or bring them back if you have a 60-second timer.
Still have 30 seconds. I can do
Okay.
it now.
Yeah, do it now, please.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Polls are coming up.
Starting to get some folks back in the room.
And here we go. People are back. Welcome back. Well, that was a grossly inadequate amount of time to say a proper hello. And we hoped you would just get a feel for thinking about teaching artistry and hear a little bit about where others are at regarding teaching artistry. And we're going to collect a little data now by doing 3 poll questions that get us a little more specific feel about who's in the room. So, Norma, here we go to Tech Challenge number 2. Can you put up poll 1? All right. For who's in the room? never been a teaching artist, have been, but not now. I'm newish, first 2 years. I'm experienced, 3 to 6 years. I'm very experienced, 7+ years. Oh, I think I might be in the wrong workshop. Which is a fit for you? What's your guess for what we're going to see as results? Who showed up for this first essentials conversation for the Guild? Wonder if we should do one of those online betting polls. See who guesses it close. All right, let's see. Let's see some results, Norma. All right, we knew this was going to be an experienced crowd. So we have plurality are 7+ years long experienced, and we've got a significant percentage, in fact, just a majority that have either never been a teaching artist or once were but are not now. So over half of our participants are not currently active as a teaching artist. And then some others in our room are very experienced as a teaching artist, and nobody thought they were in a watercolor painting workshop. I'm glad to hear. So that's in the room. We've got our extremes, the same way we had with our sheep scale, that we're kind of a wide breadth. Let's go to that second question. And knowing that first question, I'm curious how the answers will come in on the second one. So this one is, how do you feel about the current state of teaching artistry, whether you're an active practitioner or not? These are good times, pretty good times, sort of mixed, maybe not so great. It's tough. It's the worst I've ever seen. Or it's so bad I'm giving up. This is where we need that idiotic quiz show music, except that AI would probably write it, so let's not do it. Whatever's closest answer for you. I'll give you another 10 seconds. Norma, let's see the results. We got Patty still waiting for checks from her previous one. All right, so we have a pretty clear answer here. A majority saying it's okay for me, but it's mixed overall. That's a kind of straight in the middle answer that I personally am doing okay, but my sense of the overall is it's a mixed bag for us. That's a pretty strong consensus. Didn't really expect that. Let's go to that third poll question. And this is, how do you feel about the future of your career as a teaching artist? You're positive, generally positive, okay now, worried about what lies ahead. No, it's going to get worse. I'm going to have to leave it. Going to have to leave it soon. I'm discouraged now and about the future. Oh, Norma, you're quick. Quick with the musical background. It does sound like a game show. That's good. This is going to make answers go speedy. Benny Hill music. And we'll give you another 10 seconds. And let's see what those results are. Generally positive now, but not sure about the future, and okay now, but worried about ahead. So the general sense of our room, and it's pretty strong, 3/4 of our answerers, like again, doing okay, I'm okay now, but I'm uncertain about what lies ahead. That's a pretty strong consensus for our group here today. Super, thank you. Gowri, what are we going to be doing for the next hour?
Let's have a look. Norma, can you put the slideshow on, please? Thank you. So this is what we're going to be exploring in the next hour. We're going to be looking at the current climate and thinking about what we need to change. We're going to be looking at some opportunities in the field and where teaching artists actually do thrive. We're going to be looking at and hopefully sharing some resources as well, looking at how we can do better because we love to do that, and looking at some areas that need our attention. So those are areas of growth that teaching artists are going to be needed in the future, and examples of 2 really great projects. And then finishing up with advocacy in the Guild and some questions in closing.
Super.
Next slide, please, Norma.
Okay, now we get into the bummer part of our time together. I'm going to put something in the chat box that's kind of unusual. One of the most significant, I guess we call him pundits of our arts field, one of the most experienced, most informed people, recently published an essay about teaching artistry. That is really rare. When a top person thinks about the state of the field of teaching artistry, and I recommend you all read it. The link is there, Emil Kang. And in it, I pulled out this quote: "Teaching artists are the individuals who reach the largest number of young people in this country. In many schools, they are the only practicing artist a student will encounter during their entire education. We build the house on their labor and then told them they were guests in it. We owe them more than admiration. We owe them a living wage and a sustainable profession." So here are 8 hard truths about teaching artistry. Teaching artists are underpaid, have always been underpaid with very few exceptions. A little bit of facts from 2025, a study by the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable. The average earnings of a teaching artist in 2025 in New York City is between 35 and 50,000. That number has not changed since 2018, although inflation has gone up by 28%. So New York, one of the highest wage cities in the country, teaching artists are making well below median income, well below what it takes to live in New York City, and their wages have not increased one lick since 2018, pre-pandemic. And in fact, employment has dropped for teaching artists in New York City since the pandemic. Number 2, teaching artists struggle with the issue of health insurance coverage. It's their number 1 challenge. And that same study from the roundtable found that in New York City, 6% of teaching artists have their health coverage covered by an employer. 6% in New York City. It's probably lower in other parts of the country. That is, as Emil Kang says, not okay. Never has been okay, has not gotten better. That is the number 1 challenge, and it's a big reason we've been losing many of our most experienced teaching artists to the field. There are still few reliable pathways into the profession. Over my 47 years of trying to build up the field, Some new pathways have begun. There are elective ways at many universities where you can learn a little bit about teaching artistry before you're thrust out into the cold world. There are a few pathway programs around the country, but there are still few reliable pathways for eager young artists to hear about teaching artistry, no less get trained enough to enter it with skills. To that, we add that there are a few ways to climb in a career with experience. So as you get more experienced, you just keep getting the same money, the same kind of work. There is no career ladder unless you choose to become an administrator. And that pattern has been true for a long time. If you want to move up in the field, you have to become an administrator and do less or no teaching artistry. It's always been true that to sustain a career, you have to have the entrepreneurial gene. You have to be proactive in putting forth work. You have to invent material. That is the only way you're going to build a substantial and sustainable career in teaching artistry. We have to note that the largest share of teaching artistry in the US is in schools. This has always been true for the professional field of teaching artistry, not true around the rest of the world, but is true for teaching artistry. But that percentage, that share of employment is decreasing in schools as it's starting to increase in other parts of our field. But it's significant to know that over the 50 whatever years of this field, the number one share of work is on the decrease. Those of you who are experienced teaching artists know the work is isolating, can feel lonely. There are very few opportunities to come together on a regular basis, feel that you're part of a field, feel that you're part of a regional collective. Thank God for some beautiful programs that do allow for that, where teaching artists do come together. They tend to be regional. Our national collectives have not gone well over the years. They've done beautiful work, but been unable to sustain themselves over time. So we are still a disconnected, often lonely field. And our field itself remains largely invisible, still unfunded by major funders. No major funder has ever invested in building an infrastructure for the field of teaching artistry in other than a passing way or a regional way. So we have never caught the commitment of a major funder. So we still lack the infrastructure to build a field. So we started with the bad news. That's the hard truths of our teaching artist field, but don't click out of this meeting just yet because it doesn't stay that bad. Over to you, Gowri.
Thanks, Eric. Next slide, please, Norma. So we're going to stay with the negative for just a little while longer and think about what the reality is right now. Many of you said that you're doing okay, but you are worried about the future. And like me, I'm sure you know really how to hustle well, which is why a lot of us are kind of treading water right now. I can only speak from my own experience, what my reality is right now, and it's pretty bleak. I like to think of it as the 3 Fs. That's what I'm going through. Funding, reduction in funding in every direction, mainly in federal funding for the arts and humanities, research and education. And a lot of our projects are addressing DEI. So we're having a reduction in funding there, which I know that I've been witnessing that. There's also fear, and that's not just our geographic or climate fear, but also our political climate. How are we going to exist as teaching artists and be able to do the work that matters with underserved populations when that funding continues to decrease? And also there's fears about the future. As we are treading water in this fallow time, we're really encountering this huge rise in AI, in intellectual property theft, copyright infringement, reduction in consumer protections. And for an artist, it's a worrying time. But there are some things that we can change, and that's what we are going to be exploring right now. Next slide, please, Norma. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about in the next few minutes might seem really obvious. Some of them might be new, but please just continue to put your ideas in the chat for everyone to share. I like to think of this, I'm kind of gathering my energy during this time. It's a period where I'm getting less work, fewer contracts, and there's uncertainty there. So I'm using this time to just kind of take care of myself. Now, this might seem obvious, but it's so important to protect yourself. We can't change the world around us right now, but we can change ourselves. One of these things is protecting our time. I don't know about you, but I'm spending a lot of time in Zoom meetings that do not result in any contracts being signed. So consider how much time you spend online. It's not just in meetings, but how much time you're spending on emails. Is there a way you can make those more efficient? Send out your agendas before you start those meetings, and answer your emails once or twice a day. And the same goes for social media as well. Maybe you can use that time to read and research and maybe practice your art form. The second is your physical body, and this is such an important piece. We don't really talk about protecting ourselves unless we are talking about dance and movement, but it's really important for self-care. It doesn't just mean meditation and mindfulness, but actually taking care of your physical body. The time that we're spending at computers, doing prep work, leaning over tables, over students, that's really, really bad for our bodies. And when the body fails, and artists' bodies will invariably fail, I can speak from experience, they're going to do so in spectacular style. I want to draw your attention to this phenomenal book. It's called Draw Stronger, and by Creota Wilberg. The book's called Self-Care for Cartoonists and Visual Artists, but it's not just for visual artists, it's for anyone who works at a computer or at a desk. And it just sort of helps us to take responsibility for our bodies again. Because like we mentioned, we're not getting any health insurance protection from anywhere else. We really do have to take that responsibility for ourselves. Drawing and redrawing those contracts is really important too. Do those conditions still work for you? Are your rates still equitable in this climate? All costs are rising, but that means your material costs are rising too. Space fees, mileage, gas, and cost of liability insurance. My public liability insurance has gone up considerably since last year, and I've never put in a claim. So are you charging enough to cover the price hike, and how are you making that balance? Can you negotiate anything moving forward? So now's a good time to take stock of that. Next slide, please, Norma. So one of the things we can do with this time is think about retraining. We always, as teaching artists, we preach a beginner's mindset, but now is a really good time to practice that. We can always take training in new areas. Some of the fastest growing areas in our industry are in creative aging, working in accessibility and with people with disabilities, and healthcare settings. And there are many organizations that focus on providing skills in this area. And we're going to mention some of those later in the resources. Also, understanding your current landscape. What does that look like? Keeping up to grips with current trends, looking at podcasts and books. If you haven't looked at this book, Making Change by our very own Eric Booth, teaching artists and their role in shaping a better world, really is worth getting. Extremely generous and informative read. Just a plug for you there, Eric. You can also take some time to brush up on your digital skills. We've all heard of Canva, but Canva Affinity is a new and completely free program. For those of you that use the Adobe Photoshop suite, Affinity came out as a great alternative to that. Affinity, incredibly cheap compared to the subscription for Adobe. And Affinity married with Canva to give you Canva Affinity. Please look into it. It's great for designing your websites or your promotional materials. And another great free program for video editing is called DaVinci Resolve. You are going to be getting a copy of all of these slides, so you don't necessarily need to take notes here. And also just thinking about those free skill sites, Skillshare sites. I don't know about you, but during COVID, I was addicted to these. There are just so many, Domestika and Udemy and Skillshare. Don't underestimate what you can learn through these sites. I often look at these just to brush up on my kind of artistic offerings and see if there's anything new that I can offer and just keep my offerings fresh. So it never hurts to kind of just take stock of where you are right now. Next slide, please, Norma. And the final piece here is remarketing yourself and reshaping your brand. It's a really good time to think about how you present yourself, what are our offerings, and how can we evolve them? What is it that you offer, and is it still aligning with your creative practice? Do you still care about what you teach? Because we really need to evolve with our changing world. Maybe you could think about offering something new with shorter bursts of creative engagement, supporting folks with shorter concentration spans, reduction in fine motor skills, and competition with screens is very real for us. Do less, do better. And what I mean by that is putting your energy where it does the most good. What is it that you enjoy teaching above all else? And what are you known for? Are the two things the same? Because teaching what you love is going to keep you authentic. It's really important to be able to articulate what it is you offer in a succinct and engaging way. And if you can't do that, it really begs the question, why not? Communicate your offerings with clarity and passion, and it's going to require a little bit of soul searching and a bit of time, but it's really worth doing. Refreshing your website, and I know there's some chat about websites, and there are lots of free ways to get websites as well. Thanks, Rocky, for putting that in the chat. Make it cleaner, less cluttered, update that portfolio, and just make it accessible. You can making regular edits and adding keywords on your website is going to improve your SEO, so you're going to be more visible on search engines. Also consider using a contrast checker to see if your colors are readable and if your fonts are accessible, and add alt text to your photos, because making your website as accessible as possible to as many people as possible is absolutely vital. Now it bears mentioning again, refresh your rates and then update those to your marketing materials. So you can't increase your rates and then not change your marketing materials there. And finally here, stay relevant. We have this huge challenge in our industry of teaching artists aging out. So stock up on your energy reserve and put your energy where your skills are. We can still learn new skills and retrain and keep up to date with new materials and technology and still be efficient. So it's just a good to mention, just go with the flow. Next slide, please, Norma. We'd like to hear from you for a few minutes. What are some creative or innovative marketing ideas that you can share with the group? I'm going to put that in the chat and turn the share off for a minute.
And Gary, I can add from the chat, we had several people talking about pay issues. I wanted to remind our participants of two resources on the Guild resources. They have the Teaching Artist Pay Rate Calculator, which gives a sense of what an appropriate pay rate would be based on cost of living in your area. And TAMA, Teaching Artists of Mid-Atlantic, also have a pay rate tool that can help give you a feel of that. And I also wanted to note, Caroline began a conversation about arts and health, about teaching artistry contributing to health, which we'll be talking about more as this session goes on, because that is the fastest growing part of our field. So that will be coming up. But let's see if we do have some answers to your question coming in.
Great. Some creative and innovative marketing ideas that we can share with the group. Chris has mentioned networking. Yes, very successful. Building relationships, so important. And Chris also mentions writing articles for local sites. yeah, because your name and information is there at the end, and you can add links to your social media and web pages as well.
The two rules of thumb I have used for getting work for 47 years. One uh, is work begets work. When you do good work, it is the spark for more work. And second, visibility counts. So those talks to the local Rotary Club, those visits to a small group of educators, those are the way you keep your teaching artistry visible. And that counts. That's what one of the main ways that I have found work gets created.
Yeah. Yeah, Eric, that kind of echoes what Anne is saying. And tabling at local events, just making your presence known, especially regionally and local. Local is best.
Ellen is citing Lifetime Arts, which is the leader in creative aging, which is the fastest growing sector of our field. You should know that. That is where the most new jobs are coming from right now. It's one section of the arts and health, which is this burgeoning part of our field. But creative aging, with Lifetime Arts leading the way for about 10 years, has been the growth area for our field.
Lauren has a great suggestion. She said, rebranding myself as an arts education consultant rather than a teaching artist has allowed them to ask and receive a much hourly rate. Very inventive. Yeah.
Tabling at local events, yes. I've wondered about, swap meets. Could there be a teaching artist table at a swap meet? Because people will say, what the hell is teaching artistry? And then you catch people's interest because they've never heard of it, and it's surprising and interesting.
Great. Keep those suggestions coming. Thank you.
Yeah, and Patty's mentioning that a number of cities have rosters, some state arts councils, some local arts councils, some large arts education organizations. That is kind of the most standard formal way to get rostered one way or another. Uh, the the entrepreneurial way usually includes rostering and some other way to create visibility so people are aware of your work. Great comments coming up. Gowri, you want to move on?
Yes, let's move on.
Okay, so this is a little section of ours where Norma's going to bring our share screen back up. And about 20 years ago, I reorganized how we think about the field of teaching artistry. Up until then, we hadn't really made an organization of it. We thought, oh, yeah, you work in schools, you work in communities. But this is an organization that seems to hold water of the 7 things teaching artists are hired to accomplish. And I want to just do a quick run through of these because each of these different purposes is in a different state for our field. The work of art thread, the purpose of which is to enhance the encounter with works of art. That's what started the name teaching artistry at Lincoln Center 50 something years ago. And it's still alive. That's why every major museum has a teaching artist roster, and most arts organizations, performing arts centers, have a teaching artist faculty to enhance the encounter with works of art. And this is really expanded and deepened with pedagogies developed, and other parts of the world are particularly interested in the US expertise in that purpose. Then there's art skills development, which may be the newest kid on the block. And this is the recognition that uh, artist training goes deeper if it includes teaching artist skills as a part of it. If artist training is not just the tunnel track toward getting art jobs, but is in fact a wider inclusion, it creates better artists. I discovered this when I started the teaching artist program at Juilliard. And after 10 years, we did a little research study of the students who had been through the teaching artist preparation program and their colleagues who had, gone out into the field, but nothing to do with teaching artistry. And we found that those who had developed teaching artistry as a part of their artist training were happier in their careers. They felt more creative control in their careers because there were more kinds of creative work they could be doing. And most important, they were earning more money because they had greater variety in the kinds of interactions they could have with the professional world. So this is deepening that artist training that includes teaching artist skills is being recognized as a part of our field. Arts integration, I'll bet many of you who are experienced teaching artists have been involved in arts integration. Kennedy Center, very involved in arts integration. And this is the belief that by bringing teaching artist engagement with the arts together with other subject area learning, both go further as a result. This is where the beautiful work of, not just STEM, but STEAM work is in arts integration. And there is a big old load of research that shows students learn better in arts integrated curriculum. And if we get the balance just right, they become more interested in the arts and more interested in their subject area, and they improve faster in both as a result. The community thread, which connects to community artists, used to be thought of when I was a young teaching artist as kind of separate fields, but they've merged as we realized the same humans are doing community-based work and teaching artist work. So we just think of it as the community thread now. And you've seen those community murals, community choruses, people working in communities to bring them together. And that is physical communities, but even communities like schools and senior living centers. There are many teaching artists who are hired to enrich community life because community engagement works. There's activism. Boy, has that risen in priority and urgency in our field. Teaching artists who are hired and bring their skills to change political and social movements. I just came away from a week-long retreat where we were thinking of how teaching artistry can make a difference in anti-authoritarianism in the US and around the world. So many of you may have a special feel for bringing your teaching artistry to political activism. There's a whole lot of stuff online that would be happy to welcome you into the work. Social personal development. Those of you in CYD, Creative Youth Development, those of you with a special attention to SEL learning, this is your thread. This is where arts engagement produces social skills in our participants. This is the El Sistema Music for Social Change program around the world, where engagement in youth orchestras actually opens wider the set of possibilities for your whole life, the choices you can have in life. And increasingly, teaching artists who develop the skills for how you produce special results, special skills in people through their artistic engagement, this is rising. And in fact, as I travel around the world in other countries, the first thing they recognize as a value of teaching artistry is it's being an answer to the youth mental health crisis in their home countries. So this is one of the rising areas as a part of the arts and health sector of our field. And finally, partnering for non-arts goals. I bet there's some of you who have been hired by businesses to produce greater creativity or for teamwork. This takes a little bit of entrepreneurialism, but I can tell you businesses pay better than schools pay. And the work is pretty interesting. You may think they're going, oh, not very artsy. Indeed, the most common thing I'm hired to teach in businesses is creativity, but no art. The idea is creative engagement produces the kinds of outcomes many organizations want. And increasingly, this is a zone opening up for teaching artist entrepreneurialism, where you can help other sectors achieve their goals, like governments. Most of the major cities in US have teaching artists in residence because they help the sanitation department achieve their goals, and they help corrections achieve the corrections goals. So this is a big part of our field. And I just included digital there in pink, not that it's a purpose, but that teaching artistry has not really found its place there. There's plenty of creative stuff you can do online, but actually being able to creatively engage people, not just to play games in which you get to choose things, but where you generate creative results, that is still an open area for our field. There, we haven't really found our legs or our income in that part of our field. I'm done, Gowri.
Let's hear from the group. Are there any opportunity areas that you are seeing or working in that you can share? No, we could probably turn off the share for a minute or two. Thanks.
Chris is not quite clear on that comment, I guess, about digital. There's a lot of gaming, there's a lot of creative play online. But the thing that teaching artists do, number one job of teaching artists, activate the artistry of other people. There aren't that many places where I have seen teaching artists create something with real Velcro grab for people, where we're activating their artistry and guiding it towards something that matters in the world. So that's the one I'm identifying for people with a tech bent. I don't have it, but I think there are big opportunities there for us. Other opportunity areas, as I mentioned, arts and health is this burgeoning opportunity. I've never seen anything like it in my 50 years in teaching artistry.
Eric, there's a comment here from Tony saying that, whoop, that's gone, saying that they're noticing that hirings for artists seem to have hidden links to train AI to do the same. That sounds
Yeah,
and
we
frightening. You have some thoughts about AI, don't
I
you?
do. It may not be, I got so many thoughts about that. It may not be right for this setting. I wrote an essay that I'll send you all a link to of 13 things that AI cannot do, but artists can. And we need to be focusing on those value added things that artists bring. That, I mean, AI can write 30 novels in 5 minutes, but AI cannot intuit the right thing to happen next to open somebody's heart, to open somebody's mind. So we'll save that for a little bit later. Um, let's see. AI is going to be a challenge to us, but I think it's also an opportunity area as people increasingly discover the limitations of AI. Someone asked about arts and health. Uh, Youth mental health crisis, if your work can directly and responsibly address issues of loneliness, issues of sense of isolation, kids feeling disconnected from the world, if you can create ways that can have that direct impact, the field is hungry for that. Other countries around the world are hiring and training teaching artists to answer that need right now, but it needs to be responsible. We're not arts therapists. We bring another skill set, and we could have an essentials program just on what is that distinction between a trained arts therapist, and a creative, engaging teaching artist who brings out your natural creativity to take you to healthier mindsets. I see Chris mentioning that there is a big place for teaching artists in addressing the environmental crisis. ITAC, International Teaching Artists Collaborative, has done a lot of work in that space. Gowri was a leader of a lot of it. There's not that much employment, but there are grants. If you have an environmental bent in your work, there are grant opportunities to really make change in people's understandings and actions through teaching artistry and climate. Yeah, I see people starting to engage in that conversation about the difference between therapy and what teaching artistry can bring. That's an important conversation because there is wide opportunities for us in health, depression. We're going to recommend a resource that will help with that. The book Art Cure, which has gathered the research on arts and healing and has a real respect for what teaching artists can bring. Gary, you got some resources up there. You want to talk through them?
I do. And just to say, these are just resources that are in our immediate kind of vision. I know there are lots more organization offering resources, so please populate them in the chat. But we're just going to share a few resources right now. In terms of information and tools and support, a lot of these have been mentioned already, but these links will take you directly to those resource packs on the website. ITAC, the International Teaching Artists Collaborative, has a phenomenal amount of resources, including 2 resources that Eric and I have worked on. One is a course that's free on the Cadenza platform, which is called Teaching Artistry for Social Impact. It's a very intensive course, but extremely valuable. And the second is an impact and assessment guide that I put together when I was working with ITAC that is free to download, and anyone can use them to measure impact in their projects and community arts projects. So there's a link there for the member resources. The previous tag assets, tag have sunsetted now, but they still do have a lot of links and useful links on their website. The Guild has website resources too. And Artist Thrivers, a national organization that supports artists and arts organization, and they have a huge national resource hub. So please do dip into that and have a look. In terms of business skills for self-employed artists and teaching artists, Springboard for the Arts has a great resource called Work of Art. Really, really helpful for helping people to brush up on their business skills. And New York Arts and Education Roundtable have the remote learning resources. I relied on this so heavily during COVID, and it's such a generous resource there and just really helpful in getting ideas. And Tama as well have a great member resource section on their website. It's very cheap to join. Please do consider getting a subscription with them and making use of all of those fabulous resources. Norma, next slide, please. Thanks. Some training for teaching artists. Now, this is both direct and indirect learning opportunities. So direct meaning organization to teaching artists, and indirect meaning organization to a host, such as an arts council or an arts organization, to the teaching artists. So the organization that I am co-founder of, Teaching Artists Connect, we offer foundational courses for artists who want to become teaching artists, and also specialized training in creative aging and accessibility. We talked about Lifetime Arts, and they specialize in creative aging. Open Door Art based in Massachusetts, focuses on accessibility. And again, they have a great accessibility resource hub that's free to access. Tati is a teaching artist training institute for music teaching artists, and Community Word Project, now known as the Teaching Artist Project, has courses in social justice and social emotional learning and work in schools and more. Next slide, please, Norma. And some of those books that we talked about, and a couple of podcasts. Why Change, the podcast for a creative generation. Oh, we're on the move. Is a fantastic podcast. It's by Creative Generation with Madeline McGurk, who's the managing director of ITAC. Also Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Body, another great podcast resource. And then 3 books that we love right now. Eric's book, Making Change. Also, Your Brain on Art. I know a few people have mentioned that in the chat. And Art Cure, the science of how the art saves lives. No, and just to mention that the slide links are not accessible through Zoom, but after the presentation, the National Guild are going to package this up into a beautiful PDF with lots of other resources and links, and you will get it sent to you by email, and all of the links will be live in the PDF. Next slide, please, Norma. And finally, a couple of resources to make your website more accessible. This contrast checker is a great resource. You can click on your text and click on the background, and it will tell you how accessible it is for people with low vision or are blind or are using a screen reader. So it's always good to check. And Wave, WebAIM has a lot of great resources about accessibility there. And a really great TED Talk produced by the Art of Education, who have compiled a whole list of great TED Talks that every art teacher should watch. And they should really say art teacher and teaching artist. So we've got lots of great resources coming up. And thank you, Guild, for putting those into the chat. We could probably move on, Eric, do you think? Or do you want to go through some of the resources?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there's just a little thing I wanted to mention about how we can do better as a field. I've had a good opportunity a couple of times to gather teaching artists virtually, once in a ITAC think tank with around this idea to say, and mostly focusing on American teaching artists, to say, okay, the mess of jumble that the arts field has found itself in at this time, with so many things changing, so many uncertainties, cutbacks, and all of that, let's assume it's never going back to the way it was. Not that the way it was so perfect, but let's just assume that the churn, the chaos, the upset of our current occasion is never going back to a previous reality. If that's given, what is the kind of reality we want to start creating? Can we socially imagine an art sector, a teaching artist sector that is both optimal and practical? And in both of those occasions, when I've been able to have those conversations with a group of teaching artists online, way different if in person, 3 things came up as a key part of almost a structural pillar of what they'd want to see in the future. First was there is an important energy around regionality. As a national field, I mentioned at the beginning, we've just failed. We have not built the infrastructure. We have tried. We've had heroic organizations, but we don't really find the support or the buy-in for a national infrastructure at this point. Be great to have it someday, and I hope it happens before I croak. But in the next iteration, the energy seems to go toward regionality. is people we can be in physical relationship with, getting the energy to start being in physical relationship with them. In regional gatherings, the second word people come up with is coalitions, moving just beyond teaching artistry for and by teaching artists, but actually connecting to other sectors that care about the same things so that we start to align toward purposes like youth mental health, like creative youth development, and creating coalitions with social service agencies who also care about that, with healthcare providers who also care about that, with like Lifetime Arts, senior living specialties who care about that and need teaching artists. Coalitions are going to become a big part of our future if we're going to have our field grow. And then a slightly smaller gesture of coalitions is partnering. Teaching artistry has always required partnering. And can we be more intentional in our partnering? That's partnering with a teaching artist and someone from another field, like a health sector, like teaching artistry and a business partner to accomplish something that works for that business, to be on the lookout for not being a solo entrepreneur, but being in a partnership endeavor. Those ideas keep coming up as constructs, formative tools in the next generation of teaching artistry. Gowri, you had some thoughts.
I do. Norma, let's have a look at that slideshow again, please. Thank you. So these are some, thanks for those, Eric. And these, I know we've mentioned a lot of these, but we're just putting them all in one place. The areas that are going to require our attention, I should say our attention, not our attention, I apologize. Diplomacy and civil discourse. This is probably needed more than ever right now. How do we talk to people who do not agree with our views? Social emotional learning. This is very popular and will continue to be. Healthcare and creative aging, accessibility, and some of those areas that require our soft skills, which have always been downgraded, but we know are so important through teaching artistry. And I think the more that we focus on these soft skills like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, what we call our 21st century skills, the more that we're going to be being able to overcome AI as well as a competitor. We're going to look at two examples of projects in two of these fields. And next slide, Norma, thank you. And the first is a project in the area of communication and civil discourse. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about this artist, Philippa Farm Hughes. Philippa is a writer and a speaker, a social practice artist, and she was a social practice artist, so resident at the Kennedy Center. Philippa thinks of herself as a curator of human connection, and when you learn about her work, you'll see why. She's a former lawyer, and Philippa works at the intersection of art and democracy, creating socially engaged work about American identity. She believes in repairing the social fabric of our country through creative conversations and civic engagement. And she curates events that encourage people across the political divide to engage in unconventional and meaningful ways. Next slide, please, Norma. Thank you. So in 2022, she collaborated with the University of Michigan Museum of Art, which acted as an election hub. People go there and register to vote. They were offering free resources, celebrating participation, and really creating space for social discourse. And you can see in the left-hand picture here, there's lots of people sitting around tables in the museum atrium, eating together and talking about politics in a civilized and diplomatic way. What a wonderful thing to hear. In 2024, she continued this project, and here she curated a series of events where she was inviting people to come for dinner. And Philippa has curated hundreds of events like this, but this one took place in Michigan University Museum as well. She specially commissioned wallpaper from artists featuring symbols from all 50 states. She hung walls from the museum collection that would give talking points for people and invited community members with different points of view and different political opinions to have a respectful dialogue over food, as they might do at a dinner party. And I love the fact that she calls this art form social sculpture. Next slide, please, Norma. So the curation of this space is really vital. She's done this very carefully and really inviting a diverse group of people to interact in a safe space and most importantly, without judgment. They're surrounded by art in an institution of learning and culture and all foundational pillars of democracy. And I think in this really divided time, the objective here is not to change people's minds, but to change their tone and to really engage in honest and brave conversations about civic responsibility and identity. So I think Philippa's really created a phenomenal model here for fostering healthy and difficult and honest conversations. I just want to see before we go on to Eric's project that last week I read an article that NOFA in Vermont, so that's the Northeast Organic Farming Association, supplied $200 microgrants to 28 projects to fund this project called the Long Handled Spoon Project. And these were given out to fund community dinners in communities across Vermont that encourage them to buy and share and cook for one another locally grown food with their neighbors around over conversations. And I just thought it was such a beautiful way not only to support local agriculture, but also to get people to convene over food and conversation. I'm going to put that link in the chat for anyone who wants to read more about that program. And thanks, Rocky, for putting in Philippa's details there. Thanks. Eric.
Yeah, I'll just briefly mention one colleague whose work inspires me. Next slide. And this is Michael Road. Some of you may know his work of state of mind. He lives in Montana. He has taken the state of mind, yeah, Tony, a state of mind to small towns, over 40 of them at this point, where he has a several-day intervention that includes working with the young people around their issues of youth mental health, then presenting a work to a broad section of that town's population that stimulates their thinking about youth mental health, turning into a dinner where they talk about the issues of youth mental health across political spectrum. And they actually stimulate an ongoing conversation across divides. And they've now started to have a return visit a year later, which is even deeper and more involved. Anyway, I urge you to look up the work of Michael Road, where he is actually changing the trajectory of community mental health through his arts intervention. We have just a few minutes left here. There's one person or one perspective I wanted to include, which is about teaching artist advocacy. We have not been successful as a field in advocating for ourselves. Partly people are too busy, they've got too many things to do. The number of times I have tried to call out a wave of advocacy have failed spectacularly. We've had a few examples of success, but usually only when some other institution helps back us up. I think we can take this off the screen now, Norma. And this is an issue we have to take seriously if we're going to change the status quo of the field. And the usual solution I hear teaching artists say is, oh, we have to tell our stories. And I want to just put a quote in the chat box from Tasha Golden. And there is the link for an article she wrote for the newsletter The Ensemble. And she makes a crucial point that I want to leave us with. Instead of just thinking, oh, you have to go out and say nice things about teaching artistry and tell your personal story and the story of lives you've changed, it doesn't work. We've done it for 50 years and it has no impact. It occasionally will help in a grant application or something, but what we have to do is what Tasha invites us to do, which is to create the conditions wherein our stories land. And teaching artists know how to do that. So this is a challenge, not a quick how-to. But in all of the advocacy opportunities that you have and that I urge you to create, be mindful of creating the availability in your listeners. Create a framework so they are curious about what you have to offer. Don't just slam in with your story or they will default to their preconceptions and nothing will come of it. But if you can use your teaching artist smarts to change the frame, and the one example I'll give you is the number of times in advocating for arts education in schools, I changed the frame from arts education is a peripheral embellishment for wealthier kids. The frame is high engagement of students. And if we can get all students to be more highly engaged, academic achievement goes up. And what engages students more than creative expression? So that's how I enter an advocacy discussion about bringing more arts education into schools. How can you do it? How can you create a readiness, a surprise set of questions so that people become ready to hear your story, receive your data, and not brush it aside? And in that essay that I just gave you a link to, Tasha lays out how we need to be thinking about this as teaching artists. All right, just looking at our agenda. Yikes, Gowri, what comes next?
Well, we are going to hand it over to Rocky to take some questions and
We will
do
close
our
this session.
closing.
Norma, can you share the screen again with the slides?
And Eric, did you put the link for Tasha's
It's right at the top of my
chat?
last post.
Great. So it is in the chat. Okay.
Yep. And just a friendly reminder that we'll be emailing these out and get it uploaded to the resource section of the PDF and all the wonderful links here. So we're very grateful for y'all attending here. So let's do a little closing remarks, then we can move on. But before we close, I want to extend a sincere thank you to Eric and Gowri for sharing their wisdom, honesty, and leadership with us today. We are deeply grateful for the conversation to help create and for the many years they have dedicated to the field of teaching artistry and community arts education. Also, thank you for all y'all joining us today. Thank you for your openness, your generosity, your reflections in the chat thread that was blowing up, and showing up fully into space. Conversations like this remind me of the strength this field has, always in lived in community, shared learning, and the willingness to continue learning from one another. So we know this conversation does not end today. The realities facing teaching artists, arts organizations, and communities continue to evolve, and the Guild remains committed to creating spaces for practical learning, honest dialogue, connection, and collective support across the field. So we hope we'll continue engaging through this upcoming Guild Essential Sessions, and including our next session on June 10th, which is called Navigating the Tension Between Money and Mission. That's going to be by Lakoyan Washington and Megan Chisani from the Community Music Center in Boston, as well as our annual meeting taking place virtually on June 24th. So registration for both is now open, and we encourage y'all to sign up, stay connected as we continue building this next chapter together. But most importantly, we hope you continue staying connected to one another. The field moves forward because people continue showing up for one another with the creativity, honesty, care, and persistence. So thank you for being part of that work with us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care, everyone.